Russia is invariably the largest country in the world. Yet, despite its vast size, mental wealth, and human resources, the country's economy has wallowed in shambles. The economy of Russia has gradually transformed from a planned economy into a mixed market-oriented economy, but that doesn't seem to be the bone of contention. Let's take a look at the country's economic opportunities defined by its natural resources. It's unarguable that Russia has enormous natural resources, particularly oil and gas. Currently, it's the world's 9th largest economy by nominal GDP and the 6th largest by PPP. Russia's wide landscape is an important determinant of its economic activity, with the country owning a lion's share of the world's natural resources. Over the years, Russia has been described as an energy superpower, controlling the world's largest natural gas reserves, the 2nd largest coal reserves, the 8th largest oil reserves, as well as the largest shale oil reserves in Europe. This powerhouse of a nation is the world's leading natural gas exporter, the 2nd largest natural gas producer, and the 2nd largest oil exporter. Also, Russia's foreign exchange reserves are the world's 4th largest. It has a labor force of about 70 million people, which is the world's 6th largest. Besides the oils and minerals, Russia is the world's 2nd largest exporter of arms. These figures don't just look good on paper, but are justified in the prosperity of its people. The country is home to some of the wealthiest people in the world and accounts for the 5th largest number of billionaires in the world. It doesn't come as a surprise that roughly 40% of Russia's revenue comes from the oil and gas sector. It's also less shocking that the country has one of the lowest external debts among major economies, even though its inequality of household income and wealth remains comparatively high. Through the decade, the economy started experiencing some shakings, which were altogether tolerable until 2022, the Russia-Ukraine war. Following the events of the war, the country faced several sanctions and exemptions from the Western world and its allies, a step explained as an all-out economic and financial war, an act of solidarity to separate the Russian economy from the Western financial system. We cannot fully grasp the level of doom that has befallen Russia without looking through the past. From history, it can be well said that the Russian economy is volatile. In the 80s, Russia was transformed from a socialist economy to a capitalist system. Since then, its industrial structure dramatically shifted away from sound investment in manufacturing and agriculture toward market services, oil, gas, and mining. It's said that over the years there are 4 main characteristics of the Russian economy that have defined the system and endured despite the political changes. Firstly, the weakness of the legal system means that impartial courts do not rule and contracts are problematic. Secondly, the underdevelopment of modern economic activities, with very basic peasant agriculture still present. Thirdly, technological underdevelopment, eased somewhat by borrowing from the West in the 1920s. And lastly, lower living standards when compared with Western Europe and North America. Beginning in 1928, the Soviet Union's economy was directed under a series of 5-year plans, which seemed to work quite well. But by the 1970s, the Soviet Union began to experience stagnation. The complex demands of the modern economy overwhelmed and constrained the central planners. Decision-making became overwhelming and administration became increasingly difficult. From 1975 to 1985, corruption became the norm, thus expanding the crisis. Then, in 1986, Mikhail Gorbachev attempted to address the economic problems by moving towards a market-oriented socialist economy. This policy failed to restore the Soviet economy. Instead, it led to a process of political and economic disintegration, which resulted in the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia underwent a radical transformation, moving from a centrally planned economy to a globally integrated market economy. This resulted in an aggressive redistribution of wealth in favor of the elites. State enterprises began to be privatized, leading to controversy between the masses and the elite. For example, the director of a particular factory during the Soviet regime would become the owner. Outrageous financial manipulations were performed that enriched individuals at key positions of business and government. These individuals went ahead to invest their newfound wealth abroad, leading a major capital flight. This rapid privatization of public assets and the widespread corruption associated with it became widely known throughout Russia as grabitization. Difficulties in getting government revenues as well as dependence on borrowing to finance budget deficits led to the 1998 Russian financial crisis. This led Russia to become one of the largest borrowers from the International Monetary Fund, with loans totaling $20 billion. It was believed that the money borrowed was never used for its intended purpose. But like a game of yo-yo, Russia bounced back quickly from the financial crash. Between 2000 and 2002, significant economic growth reforms came into play. It included a comprehensive tax reform and a broad effort at deregulation, which benefited small and medium-sized enterprises. Between 2000 and 2008, the Russian economy earned a major boost. GDP grew on average 7% per year. Disposable incomes multiplied tremendously with the volume of consumer credit increasing by a large number, fueling a boom in private consumption. The number of people living below the poverty line declined from 30% in 2000 to 14% in 2008. However, inflation remained a problem. The central bank aggressively expanded money supply to combat appreciation of the ruble. Nevertheless, in 2007, the World Bank declared that the Russian economy achieved unprecedented macroeconomic stability. Russia maintained impressive fiscal discipline, with budget surpluses every year from 2000 to 2007. In 2008, Russian banks were hit by the global credit crunch, which was followed by a brief recession until late 2009. Between 2000 and 2012, Russia's energy exports experienced a rapid growth that translated into over a seven-fold increase in disposable income. In the same period, unemployment and poverty decreased by no small measure. This was a resultant effect of the high oil prices as well as wise economic and fiscal policies. However, it has become commonplace for a group of people to amass the nation's wealth. According to a report by Credit Suisse, 110 of the richest individuals were found to own 35% of all financial assets in Russia. Corruption doesn't just stop there, as the country also has the second largest volume of illicit money overflows, having lost over $880 billion between 2002 and 2011 in this way. From early 2014, the Russian economy was at the verge of going into a recession owing to falling oil prices, sanctions, and capital flight. The same year, GDP growth remained positive at 0.6%. Just when it was assumed that the worst had come, 2015 really did hit harder, with the economy shrinking by 3.7%. It bounced back and dropped again a couple of times until 2022. February 24, 2022 was when the Russia-Ukraine war started. Since then, the Russian economy has faced some heavy sanctions. First came the oil sanctions. Since the war started, the West has cut off some Russian banks from the SWIFT messaging network, banning high-tech exports to Russia, and frozen $300 billion in Russia's foreign exchange reserves. Besides that, the US and UK banned Russian oil imports in March of 2022, with the EU following suit on December 5th. Also in 2023, the EU implemented an embargo on Russian oil products. This embargo is expected to be very bad for Russia, as it will not be able to supply oil to China and India, which are exporters, not importers of oil products. On the 5th of December 2022, G7 and the EU started implementing a $60 per barrel price cap on Russian oil. Since the EU, the UK, and the US have previously banned the imports of Russian oil, the cap price mostly applies to other countries that still buy Russian oil. Insurers for the oil market, which are mostly based in the West, are banned from dealing with Russian oil priced above the cap. Russia also receives sanctions from the natural gas industry. Since the beginning of the invasion, Russia has also lost most of its European market for its natural gas, besides other heavy sanctions. Economists say that the sanctions have dealt a major blow to Russia's oil and gas industry and its economy as a whole, whose backbone is the energy sector. In 2023, Russia's oil output is expected to drop by half, while Russia's budget revenues are expected to fall by 30%. Economists also say that since imports and investments have fallen, Russia's central bank will be forced to print more money, leading to a higher rate of inflation. Russia has indeed fallen from being an unrelinquished super economy to a struggling one. We do not know the date of the country. We can only hope that if peace reigns, development will follow. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and for more content like this, subscribe to the channel. See you soon.